You're listening to the American Anomalies podcast with Jeff Hill and Brett Morton. Greetings.
Nice.
And welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to American Anomalies.
Display. All right. So I've got one to talk about this time. Imagine it's in the 1500s and shipping, boating, pulling wagons is pretty much your ways of transportation, getting around. And you get with a bunch of buddies and you say, hey, we're going to start this new colony of people. Let's get a couple hundred people on this ship and I'll drop you guys off and I'll be back with supplies in a year. And the guy doesn't come back for 2 years. And when he comes back, the whole colony is gone.
Uh-oh.
So you got to figure what happened, right? In 2 years. That's pretty much the gist of the first settlers in Roanoke, North Carolina. And when they came back, I'll jump ahead and then I'll jump back and fill it in.
Okay.
They found on the outer gate, the wall of this, imagine a fort with the log wall, you know, all the logs standing up, and carved in the woods was Croatoan. And they knew that that was a tribe of Indians, and they knew there was an island that in a little inlet there off of North Carolina that they knew where the tribe was. So the guy that came back and found this assumed everybody went there, or it was a note to say, this is where we went.
Right.
It was just odd to him that they left this fort that they had over 100 people in. So he gets back in the boat and he says, I'm going to go find them. He hits rough seas and says, hell with it. We got to cut losses and go back home. And he never went back. So for a few years afterwards, different groups would go and find the same empty place, the same fort, no buildings anymore, just remnants. And they would all come to the same conclusion that they felt the Croatoan Indians must have taken everybody or killed everybody or, you know, ruined them. And and you'd have all this other lore kick in, all these other mysterious stories. These people were taken to be used in sacrifices, to be made slaves, to all kinds of different things that went on. There was talks of dark magic, and, you know, the lore just grew because nobody had answers. But to go back and fill it all in, there are now some things that they can't conclusively say what happened in a definitive way, but they can say they're pretty sure this is what happened. And I'll get to all that. But it goes back into the mid 1500s. There was an Italian explorer who he was actually looking for a passage to Asia. They thought for some reason there was a shortcut over to Asia. They get over to what are known as the Outer Banks, which are not, they're just off the coast. But the waterway, the inlet, he thought, because of the landmass, he thought that was the other ocean. He thought that was the Atlantic. Because when he hit land on the Pacific side and they searched around and everything, they're making maps and all this different stuff. They thought that they crossed so much land that surely must be another ocean. So he wrote it up incorrectly that that's the Atlantic. And there was some scuffles and different things going on. He breaks north, and I think it was by Newfoundland. He thinks, well, this is going to be where this inlet is that's going to give me a shortcut to Asia. They were looking for shipping routes for trade. And he doesn't make it. He's wrong. He goes back to England, drops off the information. They begin to want to colonize over here. And it just wasn't coming together where they were going. But it was amazing to me to read through this, and I'll get to a lot of it. The accuracy that shipping had that was involved in shipping it back then, because what instruments would they have had? Would they have had sextants and different things like that, you know, to align with the sun, align with the stars and different things?
Yeah, a compass.
And they had to pull out the charts and map it out, and they could come back to Roanoke every time if they wanted, and they did. And this went on for close to 300 years, believe it or not. And this tale of this lost colony was always prevalent in everybody's mind. And there were people that were dead set on writing it, figuring it out. There were misunderstandings. Somebody thought something was stolen from them one time, and they went and attacked a whole village of Indians, started this big, almost war. Florida, going into the 1600s, was under Spanish rule. So you had the Anglo-Spanish wars and different things happening. And this is kind of what happened. They're on a mission to just colonize for England. And they set up imagine a ship lands and you've got 120 people on the ship and you've got all these supplies and nothing else. You better hope the weather's decent, because now you've got to make shelter. You got to make, somewhat of a hut, or maybe a log cabin could get started within a week or so. I don't know. It's a lot of work.
Right.
It was a rough life. If you had men, if you had women, if you had some kids, maybe. I'm thinking it was probably mainly just men and a few women. A lot of it was military operations, where they said, let's just go see what's the lay of the land. Let's try to make nice with the Indian tribes, because they learned real fast there was Indian tribes. And they learned real fast that they were not too far from each other, but they were willing to work with people and trade and teach and learn and different things like that. So those are some other things that came up later on as clues to what happened to the people that I'll get to. But I wanted to go through a little bit of this. It gets into the 1940s before some stuff's kind of figured out. So the first colony was established in 1585 as a military outpost, but they evacuated in 1586. John White got there in 1587. He had he wanted to come back. So like I said, 2 years went by. So 1590, they come back and the colony was gone. And they don't know what was going on. White returned to England intending to bring more supplies in 1588, just the next year. But the Anglo-Spanish War delayed his return to Roanoke until 1590. So could you imagine, your buddy says, I'll be back. I'll be back. It's going to take a month or so to cross the ocean. A couple months, we can do this. We can hold out. He doesn't come back for 2 years, man. Yeah. Could you imagine the loneliness, the isolation, the feelings of abandonment? And now you're dealing with, people that you can't understand what they're saying, what they're doing, and you're trying to like make a way and survive.
Harsh winters,
but because of this other war, he got pulled off to that. But when he came back, like I said, he found the word Croatoan was found carved in the front gate. He interpreted that to mean that they relocated to the Croatoan island, and before he could get there, like I said, rough seas, he lost an anchor, cut the ties to that, and said, hell with it, I'm out of here. So they always considered that the lost colony. I'd be wanting to know why he just felt it was okay to just leave like that, but this is what happened. So this all started around 1524. Giovanni da Verrazzano is the guy that mistook the sound for the Pacific Ocean and kind of messed the maps up. So we get all the way to 1578. So this is 50 years later. Queen Elizabeth I granted a charter to go explore these territories. So they go on these trips. It's in the 1570s. They want to do all this, New World stuff. Like I said, the Spanish kind of had control of Florida, so they stayed away from there. So they're doing stuff a little more north of it. Several times they went down there. 1583. The things about Newfoundland, they thought that they would have this northwest passage to Asia. Spain claimed that. Then there were some little scuffles for that. England got control back. What was this guy's name? Raleigh, because of the town Raleigh. Sir Walter Raleigh, excuse me. So he has this sort of win. The Queen says, you can go do what you want to do. So we're going to discover new places, colonize. We're going to occupy territories. We're going to enjoy. He was told that he could discover, search, find out, and view such remote, heathen, and barbarous lands, countries, and territories to have, hold, occupy, and enjoy. And then what he did was he would send privateers on raids to get treasure and things like that, and then he would assign people to be governors. Like, hey, man, it's mine, but I'm gonna let you go do the dirty work, you know.
Right. Oh yeah.
So there were all these different expeditions and different things, and it was kind of a lost cause for a long time. Well, it ends up like everything else about money. They get a Spanish galleon, they take it, they have so much treasure, they take it back to England. They're like, ooh, you can do whatever you want. And that's what kind of pushed him to be able to have this freedom. So they proclaim the land in 1585. Queen Elizabeth proclaimed it Virginia and made him Knight, Lord, and Governor of Virginia. So then that's when things started. He made Ralph Lane a governor, and then they went and tried to start up their own area, place to stay, place, to live. And then 1585, all this different stuff was going on. And I was trying to find the when they went back, because there's all this other stuff that went on, man. It's like a history lesson. It's crazy. But I go to those moments where he says in 1587, we got to bug out. We'll be back. I'll bring the supplies. Just chill. And then they're gone, So it was in 1590 when they came back and they couldn't find anybody, but they were still trying to do their own thing for their new governor. They thought that someone had taken, a silver cup. So they started this big incursion over a silver cup. They burned down these Indians, whole village, killing people, just decimated the place over this disagreement. And so now things had to calm down, and they go back and they're like, still talking about this Roanoke thing. It's happened 2 years before. They're like, well, where are these people at? Where did they go? What happened? So now they start talking to the people that were there. And they said, well, we've seen people that look European in the Indian villages when we go to trade with them. We've seen fair-haired children. We've seen adults that look like they don't belong there in their ceremonial dress and, in with them,
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, some Indian elders were talking of the past, and they said some of our people could read. Well, they would have never have known how at that time unless they learned from some of these people. So this is pretty much where it comes into modern day. You're talking into the 1950s, 1960s. They went back and did some excavations, and they found English weaponry and English tools intermingled with Indians' pots and different things like that. So they were like, well, wait a minute. This wouldn't have been a battle. This would have been sharing.
Integration, yeah.
They integrated. Mm-hmm. So the theory that makes sense, that it wasn't witchcraft, it wasn't voodoo, it wasn't some spirit world, poltergeist thing. It's that they just said with these 2 years and they were they had made some nice inroads with the tribes and things, and they were just like, hey, we can't survive. Winter's probably not too bad down there, but it's like, we need food. This isn't good. So the Croatoans probably said, if you come with us over to our island, we can do more for you over there, because over there the land is a little more lush. Like I said, that Italian guy thought it was so big that it was a country, and they were like, they probably had farming and everything going, and they're like, just come with us. It's just, this isn't working out for us to keep coming over here to trade with you, and you don't really have anything. Uh-huh. So they thought roughly around 120 people. You got to figure, I would guess in those days, let's just say 20% probably didn't make it. So let's just say high 60s, low 80s, 75 people were able to go and integrate with them. So that's pretty much where it ends. But for so long, so many people thought that was a message from the Indians saying, don't come back. This is ours.
They
this is what happens. But there was no evidence of a scuffle or battle. It even looked like some of the homes, some of the small buildings in the village that they made, the little colony made, were taken apart rather than torn apart, like disassembled and then taken away. Like you could see the foundation and then the rest of it was taken. So, and then it wasn't like it was burnt or anything like that. Right. It is odd though that they wouldn't want to stay on the mainland, so to speak, but where they were at, it just worked out. Everything worked for them, And like I said, when you get off that ship and you're there to colonize and you're just looking into the forest, maybe they knew they couldn't drink seawater, so that's lost. It's like, what are we going to do here? Like, now we have to go explore. We have to find like a fresh water source. We have to see if we can find any kind of natural resource, any kind of food growing wildlife. It had to be really, really tough on them.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, illness and things like I think they said influenza, smallpox, different diseases were kind of running through some people. So you had so much going on then to fight.
Right. And when they came and they searched, they just didn't find piles of bodies or
they found nobody
slaughtered or anything. So
they had to evacuate because of whatever was going on where they were set up. And sometimes the ship captain would tell a certain amount of people, well, you have to stay. I can't take you. I don't have the supplies to make it back. So you're going to have to tough it out until I can get back. This happened a couple different times. They would take, 600 people on this detachment, and they would tell 150 of them, you guys have to stay. We don't have a choice. We have to leave you. So now they're fending for themselves. And some people would say, hell with it, and walk off and not stick to the cause, You have some of that. So my thought when I think about it, it makes a lot of sense to think that they just made nice. They shared what they could. What they had was, they probably had books. They probably had some knowledge. They probably had a way to learn from and also teach, to communicate a little better. And then they could learn to, hunt, fish, feed themselves, plant, maybe make clothing off of animal skins and things like that. And then that's why somebody would say, I saw a white dude, this weird looking white dude in the group of Indians, and like he was with them. He was a boss, So it makes more sense when you start hearing those tales. There was, people would assume the worst when they just came and there was nobody there. And then so they thought it was kind of sacred, so they left it alone. So then people could come. And that was my point about the accuracy of shipping and things. They could come back to the same place thinking, well, maybe they're here this time. And they'd walk up to that same wall and go through that same gate, and it's empty again. It's like, why isn't anybody even here? Well, it was a terrible place to be, because where it was geographically offered nothing. So I think it makes a lot of sense that they would just go integrate. For sure. That's pretty much it.
Excellent.
I love that one. I've seen some horror movies based on that and stuff, and I'm like, can we make some sense out of this? Like, they're just trying to make land and for the queen. We got some new territory, stick our flag on. Everybody was doing that at the time.
Yeah, it's a great story, a great mystery still. Well, I've got, I'm going to talk about the Philadelphia experiment. So imagine, if you will, a warship vanishing into thin air, not into the fog of battle, not hidden by camouflage, but literally disappearing in broad daylight before the eyes of stunned sailors. Now imagine that same ship reappearing hundreds of miles away, only to vanish again and to return to its original dock. Some crew members are said to be burned, disoriented, even fused into the metal of the ship itself. This is the legend of the Philadelphia experiment, a story that has haunted the edges of naval history, conspiracy theory, and science fiction for over 80 years. So let's go back. It's October 1943. The world is at war. The United States Navy is locked in a deadly struggle against the German U-boats in the Atlantic, and technology is advancing at a breakneck pace with radar, sonar, and new weapons that are changing the rules of naval warfare. In this climate of secrecy and innovation, the rumors begin to swirl about a top secret Navy project at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. And the supposed goal? To make a ship invisible to enemy detection, perhaps even to the naked eye. The ship at the center of this tale is the USS Eldridge, a newly commissioned destroyer escort. According to the legend, the Navy was experimenting with powerful electromagnetic fields based on theories attributed rightly or wrongly to Albert Einstein's unified field theory. Now, the most famous version of the story goes like this. On or around October 28th, 1943, the USS Eldridge was fitted with a massive generators and special equipment. When the system was activated, witnesses claimed a strange greenish blue glow surrounding the ship. Then, in an instant, the Eldridge was gone, vanished. Some say it reappeared moments later in Norfolk, Virginia, which is over 200 miles away, before disappearing again and then returning back to the Philadelphia base. The aftermath, according to the legend, was horrific. There's crew members were said to suffer from severe disorientation, nausea, and mental breakdowns. Others were allegedly found embedded in the ship's bulkheads, as if the metal and their bodies had fused together. And then there are the most bizarre claims that sailors rematerializing inside out or vanishing entirely, never to be seen again. Very strange, very odd. So the story may have faded into obscurity if it wasn't for one man, Carl Meredith Allen, also known as Carlos Miguel Allende. In 1955, Allen sent a series of letters to UFO researcher Morris K. Jessup, claiming he had witnessed the experiment while serving aboard the SS Andrew Forsyth in Philadelphia. Allen's letters were filled with strange details, references to alien technology, and warnings about dangerous science. He claimed the experiment was proof of Einstein's unified field theory, a theory that, if real, could bend light, space, and time itself. Jessup was intrigued but skeptical, and still the story began to circulate in paranormal circles, gaining the momentum with each retelling. So, the USS Navy has consistently denied that any such experiment took place, as they do. They point out that the USS Eldridge was never in Philadelphia on the dates claimed, and that the physics behind the alleged event simply doesn't exist in any workable form. Of course, because you can't let out your secrets. Yeah. They also note that the invisibility experiments of the time were focused on magnetic degaussing. It's a real technique that used to make ships less detectable to magnetic minds, not to make them vanish from sight or invisible, but just to, they appeared magnetically invisible, or to radar sometimes. To the Navy, the Philadelphia experiment is nothing more than a myth and a misunderstanding, or perhaps a deliberate hoax. But could such a thing even be possible? The idea of bending light around an object, which is optical cloaking, is something modern science has explored using metamaterials. But in 1943, the technology just didn't exist, or so they say. As for teleportation, quantum physics allow for quantum entanglement and quantum teleportation of information, but not the instantaneous relocation of massive objects like a warship. And the notion of fusing human bodies with metal, that's pure science fiction. More at home in a horror film than in a physics lab. Because you can imagine if you tried to fuse a human body with metal, although Don't they replace hips and joints with
Yeah.
metal? That's not
But
necessarily
they're talking about
fusing.
they're talking about an interdimensional instance where
Yeah.
things had to catch up to each other, and
Now they're
if you're
part of each other.
if your molecules break apart and come back together, and something's moving faster than the other, then it's like a collision,
Yeah.
and they come back together.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I would also think would create a tremendous amount of energy, and it would either
Yeah.
melt the metal or liquefy your body, or both.
Yeah.
Versus being here's the deck and somebody's sticking out of it and they're still alive, maybe in pain and screaming, but yeah, it's hard to fathom. Anyway, we continue. So let's ask ourselves, why does the Philadelphia experiment still capture our imagination? Well, because it sits at the crossroads of a wartime secrecy, cutting edge science, and of course, the human love of mystery. We all love a good mystery. It's a story that invites us to believe that the government might be hiding incredible technologies. No, say it isn't so. It plays into our fascination with time travel, teleportation, and the idea that reality might be more flexible than we think. Maybe. And perhaps more importantly, it's a story that has never been definitively proven or disproven. And that ambiguity and that ambiguity is the oxygen that keeps the fire burning. Of course, we love a good mystery.
That's
and
right.
if that can't be proven or disproven,
that's why we're doing this.
That's why we're doing that. Exactly. That keeps our fires burning. So whether you see this as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked science, a Cold War era hoax, or a tantalizing glimpse into the hidden technology, the Philadelphia experiment remains one of the most enduring legends of the 20th century. And in the end, maybe the real experiment isn't about invisibility at all. Maybe it's about how stories, once set loose, can travel through time and space, changing shape and embedding themselves in our collective imagination, much like the sailors said to be trapped in the steel of the USS Eldridge. So there you go. In a nutshell, the Philadelphia experiment. Now, I know there's been other things tied to that. And one of them is the Montauk project, which we will touch on a later date. But this is all kind of tied together with the whole experimental government, teleportation, some telepathy, some invisibility cloaking, all
weaponry,
kind of mixed
secrecy
together there. Right.
I can definitely see the denial of things. You don't want any fraction of this to be seen as true to the enemy, and then they're sending spies to figure it out. The cloaking, when you're talking, like you said, the early days of radar, it's just the terminology. You're invisible on the radar, so sure. I get that too.
Sure.
Putting a high-powered electromagnetic machine in the bowels of a ship, I guess I could kind of see trying something, because look at like in the news, China just did this thing where they had a parade of their military and they had these huge lasers. If I think in terms, if I'm trying to put this together in my head, right, I'm thinking a laser is going to look like a big gun, a big cannon, and they're not. They're these not very big things with a big round glass disc, but it can shoot this powerful beam out of it that's concentrated somehow and do some damage, So just like this in a ship in the 1940s, like, hey, it's going to be huge. So we're going to do some testing in a laboratory. And when we go to magnify this, where can we do this work so that the ship is setting anchored somewhere? They can bring all the supplies in. It's military, so you can't go in.
Right.
They can bring anything they want into that base, into that gated area, take it onto the ship, put it together to the specs of the smaller version, test run it, and go, okay, now when we do the big test, everybody get out of here. But the guys, the proximity to this, if somebody's up in this tower to control the ship, maybe they're far enough away that they're relatively safe from harmful effects, but there's guys still down on the deck that,
Sure.
if we take this as true, they got the brunt of it, right? But it's wild that they kick it on and it seems like it worked, but then, oops, it shoots 200 miles away. It shoots 200 miles back. It disappears, reappears, disappears, reappears. Like, okay, shut it off. Okay, this is, I think, what happens a lot of times with a lot of things. You don't know until you know.
Until you try it.
You set it up. You do a little experimental run. You get a result that you like. Okay, now we need to go big or go home. And then they go big. It's like, whoops, we're a little too big, you know,
or we're a little too close,
I mean,
or we didn't protect it or shield it, or
this may not be 100% factual and true, but we are also living in a country that tested nuclear weapons on its own soil and its own men. So, so I mean, we built these little fake towns to see what the damage would be, and it was catastrophic. Like, whoa, don't do that again, guys.
Yeah.
We would do it out in the ocean, and it would fuck
with
up
a
the
warship
ocean.
near it, and then like, oop, I think we're inside the circle of danger.
Yeah, right. So anyway, back to this. I feel like it sounds to me like something that's plausible. Magnetic fields, invisibility to radar makes complete sense. We're still doing that to this day. We've got materials on airplanes that they are completely
deflect radar or absorb it in,
and so can't be seen at all. Completely invisible to radar.
Right.
Completely invisible to weapons systems, surface to air systems. We just had a showing of that with the stealth bombers in Iran with the bunkers that they hit and stuff like that. Like, didn't even know the bomb was coming, but yet you had a warning to get people out. Like, okay, look, you got till Sunday at noon. You better get out of there because it's going to happen. I think the diplomacy and the like the Geneva Convention kind of things of war that maybe our country hangs on to that others don't. Maybe it's like a gentlemanly way of saying we're about to fuck shit up.
Yeah.
So if you got some things to take care of, go ahead. Yep. But it was done with such precision and so the cloaking and the invisibility that maybe these earlier things led to it. We have to think it started somewhere. So I feel like maybe it's not to the letter of the mystery and everything around it. And maybe I don't know about the guys with the molecular issues falling into the metal but like,
or turning inside out.
Did it taking just the there's a lot of pieces here, moving pieces to this. Like it ended up in Virginia and then it flashed back. So it's 200 miles in an instant that it just showed up. It's really wild that nobody else got hurt. It didn't run into something. It's out in the water. Like, is it on a straight line? Is it this interdimensional thing where it's somewhere it was and it's sort of replaying time?
And it's odd to me that they would claim that it was in the water as the ship like docked, moored there in Philadelphia, and then it ended up presumably not on land, but in the water. Well, what made it go up the coast and then back down the coast in the same spot and not end up on the top of a mountain somewhere or in the middle of a bunch of
buildings? Causing a big calamity. Barring all of that, where it has the questions that raise the doubts, the thing I always look for is what makes sense based on what I have heard of or know or think is rational. I totally think it's rational to think there was some kind of magnetic pole type shifting engine, motor, some kind of powerful thing that could project a beam of some sort that would cloak the ship, hide the ship from radar, or the bomb.
Like jam the radar. Jam
makes total sense to me. Total sense.
But what if these guys got fried from it? They just.
But that could be that was the story got embellished and changed over the years. You take 5 people and you whisper into one person's ear by the last person, it's become this. Maybe that's the result. Is this thing made so much heat, made so much vibration? It could have been a guy. A guy didn't get absorbed. It like burnt him to a crisp, or hurt him really bad, or things like that. And it just got,
some microwave.
It's kept under secret, but some of it leaked. Somebody told somebody, but I totally think that part of it could be true. And if it is, it would be really interesting if we were allowed to, in this day and age, go back in there, if it still existed, to go see it and just see the technology.
Right.
I can't say that it was alien technology being reverse engineered or anything like that, but just the brains of these guys going off of Einstein's theories and things, and they're making this machine. That makes a lot of sense to me, but I'd like to see it because it'd be kind of cool because it's in the 1940s.
Right.
Like, again, like I'm talking about these guys in Roanoke, North Carolina. They have rudimentary tools in doing all this, and a couple 200 years later, not even 200 years later, they're doing stuff like this in a military ship, and ships are still the way. To this day, ships are still a big part of trade, travel, military. The sea is kind of like the chosen method. It hasn't changed much other than the technology and the way that we're going around, So I'd like to be able to go back and see the old calculator. Like the computers used to take up, it was in like 1960s. It was like a building, and then it was a room, and then it was a part of the room, and then it was a size of a desk,
tabletop,
and then it was the size of a desk, and now it fits in your hand, and now it fits on your wrists. So it'd be kind of cool just to see if they could ever open that book and tell you the truth and say,
well, I think the general consensus is, whatever technology you see as the end user, as a civilian in this country, is at least 20 years. It's beyond that. I tend to think it's more than that, 30 or 40 or 50 years beyond. They're not, for the exact reason that they don't want you to know, because they don't want their enemies to know, because there's no secrecy.
And it's a shame too.
You can't let the American people know without your enemies knowing.
And it's a shame too, because let's just assume that you're absolutely right. There's something you're getting today that could help somebody, that could do some good in the world, that somebody knew worked really good 30 years ago.
Right.
But they just weren't allowed to tell you yet. It's like, damn, imagine where we'd be, the
things that we will discover and find out in, 2050 or 2060, they already have now.
Yeah.
They just,
they
got to keep it a secret, which is understandable.
Yeah. And that leads me to a thought that I don't mean to get off track, but it's like with the AI, artificial intelligence. I feel like there's hints and there's things that we can see now that we realize maybe even 20 years ago, we go, wait a minute, that must have been AI. There's no way that could have, you know what I mean? Like little things click now where you go, wait a second. I remember I used to do this thing in a video game or something, and it would generate it was like, that's artificial intelligence. They just weren't calling it that yet, and it was happening 2 decades ago.
Max Headroom.
Yeah.
That guy was like the first sort of AI generated.
It was like part makeup, part computer.
Right.
But there's stuff where you could, like the little toy that would say, ask 20 questions, and you can't beat it, and it's like then that evolves into ask it any 20 questions. And then that evolves into ask it to make up 20 questions based on cucumbers, based on feet, based on a dog, and now it's like you go to the app and you say, hey, I would like a picture of a baseball player smashing a can of beer with the bat while everybody celebrates and there's fireworks. And next thing you know, it's there.
There it is.
But not to get off track, but I feel like it just falls in with exactly what you said. In the 40s, they were doing stuff that they probably knew about for 10 years. Now we're using technology in, gosh, when was a stealth bomber? 80s? Did they roll that out with Reagan?
Maybe, yeah.
What was the one they rolled out with Reagan? Remember they rolled it out and showed it off? The black.
That was
was that the B1? B2 bomber or something?
Yeah.
Had the radar penetrating structure or whatever. It's like, oh, maybe that was from the 1940s, and it was 40-year-old technology that they finally got smoothed out. They found in bunkers in Germany after World War II, there were planes that looked way more modern. You can see them out there. I can't remember, man, I wish I know the names of them, but like the front end looked really rounded and it was like a big wing, and they weren't able to get them finished in time to get them to use them in the war. Like things were, because Hitler had all this stuff going on for research and development, and they just weren't ready yet. But the look of them was so sleek and modern. And it's like you go 40 years ahead and they're just now adopting those designs. And it's like, but you've had it sitting on the desk.
Yeah.
So there's just so much out there. I think you nailed it. There's just so much out there that we're getting sort of late.
Yeah, we're getting 20, 30 years behind the curve.
You got to make sure you can use it militarily before you let the everyday consumer use it, technology. Just like with computers and stuff, you've had these little assistants. Oh, do you want me to look that up for you? Yeah. And it looks it up for you. It's like, well, you've had voice commands for over 20 years. I consider that sort of AI. Just the definition is different, obviously, then to now, but it's going to change every week with all this new computing power and things like that. We talked about this in the past, where it's like we're going from 1800 shipping mysteries, and they can kind of figure it out through kind of deduce that this is what happened, figure out from some people what's going on. And then you go 200 years ahead, you got the military doing these things that they might have been playing with for 10, 12, 20 years. 20 years later, they can implement it to where you can use it in cars, a version of it in cars. It all comes from this, I'm not going to say that the government would necessarily have all of these tools all the time to net it out however they want, because I would think you've got guys in private laboratories coming up with experimental things, and if it gets out, then they might get a phone call or a knock on the door, and we need you to come over here with that. We can't let anybody see this, type of thing. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it's been shut down. It'll be interesting. It all, even with travel, there's stories of guys in the 1970s that had trucks that they had batteries and water and all this crazy, a potato hooked up, and the car would do 90 miles to the gallon, and the guy suddenly disappeared, or the car was never seen again, and things like that.
Well, speaking of technology, what's technology telling us about the latest?
So let's talk about
asteroid
Atlast Watch 25.
There we go,
guys. Before we get into Atlast Watch 25, we also want to do some listener lore. So if you guys have stories, if you have things you want us to talk about, drop it in the comments, message us, get a hold of us. Tell us your own story, or you want to come on and tell your story, or give us something to cover and we'll look into it. We're all about these mysteries and things like that. Atlast Watch is I feel like every day the headlines change, and it's both calming down and getting insane every day. We're getting headlines like Interstellar Invader, and now they're saying it is a comet, and now they've got these new pictures of it and they can see it. So now it's going to be in October. It's going to go behind the sun, where it will then be close to Mars, and it'll be in Mars orbit. It'll pop out around December 15th, 13th, something like that. And we'll be able to see it again as it leaves our galaxy. So,
or solar system.
Sorry.
Right.
They're saying just, what we see that. And then yesterday we see all clues that point to it being alien tech, not a comet. And then we see another one that says the Webb Space Telescope reveals secrets, where they say it's got this trail that's not following it. It's like blowing out the front. It's got more, CO2 than any other comet they've ever seen. I think it was CO2, right? Let's see here. A chilling update on the mysterious interstellar object. It will fly by Mars 1 month from now. Let's see. Let me see what they say about that. think that's what I had read, was that it would go behind the sun in October. Let's see here. It's kind of funny, though, that all this started in July 1st. They said it will come as close as around 18.6 million miles to Mars, but it will only come within 168 million miles of Earth. Spacecraft orbiting Mars are in play. Let's see. They are preparing to attempt observations of the interstellar object 3I Atlas during its passage through the solar system. This guy was quoted, his name is Wilson. We can confirm we are planning to observe 3I Atlas around the time of its closest approach to Mars. This is predicted to occur on October 3rd. It will still be approximately 30 million kilometers from Mars, at which time they will attempt to obtain images using high-resolution stereo cameras. Ooh, stereo.
Nice.
Let's see. Another one that I read said, what about the possibility of it hitting Earth? What damage would it do?
A lot.
Yeah. It's not just a rock. So
have they updated the size yet? I know that at one point it was 3 miles, 7 miles, 20 miles.
7,000 miles.
Yeah.
They have not updated the size to any set number that I've seen.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to take these images when it gets closer to Mars.
Yeah, it's still kind of behind the sun, and
they've gone 3 miles, 1,000 feet, 1,000 miles, 7 miles. Right now, I think they're around 7,000 feet. I think that's what it was saying. They're wondering if it's speeding up.
It's like a mile and a third or something.
Carbon dioxide.
Okay.
It has the most carbon dioxide.
CO2, right?
Yeah. Captures comment visitor from beyond. So you have so many people that are just dying for it to be
wishing it's aliens.
Something that it's not.
Yeah.
All the clues that point to it being alien tech, not a comet. Let's see what those clues are.
Well, if it's just a comet, I mean, big deal. If it's
I feel like it's pretty much that it's just a comet.
Yeah.
Let's see. Several reasons why it is not natural. It's unnatural and aligned perfectly with the planets. 46 kilometers. What's that translate to?
25 miles.
It does not have a cometary tail. Lack of bright water gas coma has confused scientists. The lack of a bright water gas coma is puzzling. It was not too far outside our system. Water ice line is usually what they look for. Light is scattered towards the sun. A large telescope detected nickel without iron, which is a classic sign of industrial production. Suddenly it became brighter with an unexpected glow. So I don't know. I also saw a new report earlier today. I guess years ago, before another sighting, there was like what appeared to be something coming off of the surface of the sun that created a shadow. And so now they're saying that's the mothership that's been hiding.
Of course.
So it's like I said, it's calming down yet becoming more bizarre as the days go by. So but we're getting closer. We're here now. We're in September of 25. Not too far from when it comes around Mars. We should be able to get some better views of it and really see up close and personal what it is. I would think maybe somewhat. I mean, you're still talking millions of miles. These got to be some good cameras.
Yeah, it'll end up being just a little less than twice the distance to the sun from us.
It'll look
the closest it's getting.
It'll look like a fuzzy potato or a sharp-edged rock. That's my guess.
All right. All right. Well, we'll keep updating as they come in, and if anything changes, we'll let you know.
Yeah. So once again, guys, if you're not subscribed get over to American Anomalies Podcast on YouTube. That's where we're at exclusively right now until we get a few episodes, and then we'll be out on Spotify and Apple and all that good stuff. But check us out over there. We'll also be on the Jedi Cantina doing dual streams and things like that, just trying to get the word out. So until next time, keep your eyes in the clouds.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Keep watching for those anomalies.
You're listening to the American Anomalies Podcast with Jeff Hill and Brett Morton.